Welcome to Top 30. I'm Kristen Smith.
And I'm Richard Bacon, and here are your top 30 stories in 30 minutes.
The Patriots face the Eagles on Sunday in Super Bowl 52. And we've got a sneak peek at some of the highly anticipated commercials that will air during the game, featuring some pretty famous faces.
Michelob Ultra.
Lower.
Michelob Ultra.
That's Chris Pratt training for his big Michelob Ultra commercial. And Bill Hader helps Pringles introduce flavor stacking.
You made barbecue pizza.
Wow. Add a jalapeno.
Spicy barbecue pizza.
Wow.
And watch as this M&M turns into Danny DeVito.
Sometimes I wish I were human.
Whoa! Look at me! I'm human! Do you want to eat me?
And what's a Super Bowl without a good Doritos and Mountain Dew commercial?
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
After all, for some, commercials are the best part of the game. With the flu hitting more Americans than ever this season, there's a warning for those taking Tamiflu. One Indiana family claims the medicine may have caused their 16-year-old to commit suicide. High school wrestler Charlie Harp came down with the flu last month, was prescribed Tamiflu, and took his own life just 24 hours later. There is a warning on Tamiflu that states pediatric patients may be at an increased risk of confusion or abnormal behavior. His aunt and legal guardian, Jackie Ray, said, "Had I known this was an issue, I would have never given it to him." Charlie's family says he never showed signs of suicidal thoughts in the past. Tamiflu released a statement. Neuropsychiatric events have been reported during administration of Tamiflu in patients with influenza, especially in children and adolescents. These events are also experienced by patients with influenza without Tamiflu administration. Dr. Jason Henney of St. Vincent Hospital in Indianapolis says he's personally never seen Tamiflu patients display psychiatric side effects while on the prescription, but warns any medication you put in your body is going to react differently with every person.
A new study reveals what Americans classify as successful in a variety of categories, including money, work, and property. Two companies, Visual Capitalist and Thermosoft, analyzed data from 2,000 Americans. When it came to money, their data showed Americans thought people who made at least $147,104 had made it. Very specific number. And the number one benefit of making it financially, never having to worry about medical bills. As far as work, the study found people who made it worked 31 hours a week and had 5.3 weeks of vacation a year. And for property, people who made it owned a home worth at least $461,000 and a car worth about $42,000. So what's the number one missing factor from people's lives to make them feel successful? 67% said, quite simply, more income.
Toyota is recalling about 645,000 vehicles worldwide because the airbags may not deploy in a crash. The safety recall applies to 2016 Prius hybrids and 2 Lexus models. It's estimated nearly 50,000 vehicles in the U.S. are affected. But good news, you should notice a little extra cash tacked onto your paychecks by the middle of this month. With the new tax bill, employers have until February 15th to update their tax tables, which means more money in the pockets of 90% of workers in America. And just when you thought it was safe to take a nice bike ride in Australia, a kangaroo comes out of nowhere and knocks you to the ground. Let's take one more look in slow motion. The kangaroo and the cyclist are fine, and she has one heck of a story to tell.
Let's go to the New York Stock Exchange for our Fox Business Minute with your friend of mine, Nicole Penleadys. Nicole, I am hearing that McDonald's is trying to shift its image a bit.
That's right, Richard. McDonald's is getting an Instagram-friendly facelift. The chain is going to build a futuristic restaurant. It's made of glass and steel with floating apple trees that will stick out of the restaurant's roof. Pets are going to feel the love on Valentine's Day. Retailers such as PetSmart and Amazon are selling Valentine's Day-themed pet merchandise on their sites and in the aisles. Spending on fur babies is expected to jump 27% this year to a whopping $751 million. Fox Sports has acquired rights for Thursday Night Football for the next 5 seasons. The agreement gives Fox distribution rights to 11 games, except Thanksgiving night, as well as some of the mobile broadcasting.
And Nicole, how have ratings been for Thursday Night Football?
Well, they're down this past season by 12%, although usually beat all competing programming. And according to Nielsen and the league, NFL football still made up 33 of the top 50 most watched shows last year.
That's a pretty remarkable number. Nicole, thank you. Kristen, you have the story of a surprise for a loyal Eagles fan.
I do, Richard. A bus driver who drove Philadelphia area children around for 26 years finished his route this week to a once-in-a-lifetime surprise.
Mr. Gary! Mr. Gary! Mr. Gary!
Students cheered and dozens of people gathered to honor the man affectionately known as Mr. Gary. He's been an Eagles fan his entire life and wasn't shy about recruiting students to join him, even teaching the team's fight song,
Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory.
A couple of parents used a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for 2 Super Bowl tickets and airfare to Minneapolis. They got more than $5,000 and presented Mr. Gary with a personalized jersey along with the tickets. He was overcome with emotion, even shedding a tear at the gesture. Mr. Gary may get more emotional after the Super Bowl. For his sake, let's hope it's because of an Eagles win.
New documents filed by the Trump campaign show more than 40% of the money the organization spent in the last quarter went toward legal fees. USA Today analyzed the numbers from the Federal Election Commission report. It shows spending of $2.8 million over the final 3 months of the year. 1.13 of that went to legal fees. Most of the fees went to law firms representing Trump in the Russia collusion investigation and handling election-related matters. The Trump campaign finished the year with $22.1 million banked for a 2020 presidential run. To put that in perspective, President Obama finished with about $10.5 million after his first year. The big difference is that he did not headline any fundraising events until the 3rd year of his presidency. Kristen, on the heels of the Me Too movement, Hillary Clinton now says she realizes she should have fired senior campaign advisor Bernd Strider after he was accused of sexual harassment in 2007. But she also says she believes in second chances, which is why she instead demoted him, required counseling, docked his pay, separated him from the accuser, and told him he'd be fired if he continued his alleged abusive behavior. Do you think this would have happened right now if Me Too weren't as big as it is right now?
Yeah, well, probably not, because I think what Me Too, the movement, has really done is created this culture where now women, including myself, we feel empowered. We feel like we can own it and say, yeah, I would have done it differently, and if it happened today, I would be more bold.
Yeah. The reason this is a disaster for her is that this is a subject with a long troubled past for the Clintons. She's not very good at apologizing, and his behavior came back. As she said in her statement, the recurrence of Bernd Strider's behavior troubles me greatly.
Okay, let's talk about relationships.
Let's.
According to the CDC, 22% of couples married for 5 years or less experience some sort of marital disruption. Now, disruptions are things like infidelity, money problems, addiction issues, extraordinary situations, and just general incompatibility. So, Richard, you're a happily married man. You just celebrated your 10th anniversary, right? Okay, so how do you get over the bumps?
I think that Rebecca and I will be together for the rest of our lives. But to stay with the same person for the entirety of your adult life is much harder than any of us are willing to admit. And the only way to do it, I think, is you just have to keep talking about the state of your marriage and things that you've got wrong. But here's the thing, Kristen. I am an absolute nightmare to be married to.
I'm not going to fight you on that one.
Thanks. The CDC's director, Brenda Fitzgerald, resigned because it was revealed that she had purchased tobacco stock. The stock was one of about a dozen purchases Fitzgerald made weeks after taking the job. Kristen, she bought between $1,001 and $15,000 of Japan tobacco, and they have 4 brands in America. Buying stocks in tobacco is such a stark contrast from the job that she was supposed to be doing, persuading people to give up tobacco and keeping children from becoming smokers. Kristen, what do you make of this?
Look, if you're gonna be head of the CDC, then you should believe in the core values of what you're doing, right? So if she's gonna take that job, don't take a job if you can't represent the core values.
If you buy stocks in something, then you're backing that stock.
Exactly.
So on the one hand over here, you're saying, okay, America, don't smoke.
Right.
And at the same time, you're saying, I think tobacco's going to do well. And she's also going to be involved in decisions that affect tobacco stock. It is basically ridiculous.
Okay, now here's a crazy story that I know will make you laugh, Richard. A woman trying to board a United flight out of Newark, New Jersey recently tried to bring her emotional support animal on a flight with her. Not a big deal, but it wasn't a dog, it wasn't a cat. Richard, it was a peacock. A peacock! And it wasn't a baby peacock, it was a huge peacock. Look at these pictures. The woman said she paid for an extra seat so the bird could have a space to sit. But United said, listen, lady, this isn't allowed. They barred her peacock from boarding the flight.
If I got on an aeroplane and there was a peacock in the next seat, I would be annoyed.
The feathers would be tickling your nose.
Did she say this is her comfort animal?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
She was in with a straight face. This is what comforts me.
Yeah, which I think whilst causing massive discomfort to everybody else.
Exactly. But it made you smile, didn't it? More Top 30, you guys, in 90 seconds. In today's Hometown Stories from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, 13-year-old Patrick Plunkett Jr. was pitching in a tournament when a batter sent the ball straight to Patrick's chest. The hit caused him to go into cardiac arrest. Luckily, Katie Patel was at the game. A nurse at Memorial Hospital in Tampa, Katie sprung into action, performing chest compressions until help arrived.
At our house, we call her the angel in the infield, because that's what she is.
Patrick and his family recently reunited with Katie for hugs and thanks. Our next story from Fox 10 Phoenix. For those who are homeless, laundry isn't a chore, but a luxury many can't afford, which is what inspired the Tempe Community Action Agency to begin collecting donations for a mobile laundry unit. Through grants and fundraising, the organization can now provide a 20-foot trailer filled with washers and dryers for those in need.
It helps them be able to feel better about themselves. And so in terms of the programming that we provide for the homeless, it's an important and key element in that.
Our final story from Fox 9 Minneapolis. Leo Jackson was given the surprise of his life. Friends and family, plus St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter, were on hand to honor Jackson for his dedication to youth programs across the city. When the Super Bowl committee surprised him with tickets to the big game. As overwhelmed with gratitude as Jackson was, even more excited was his 7-year-old son, Leo Jr., who Jackson will be taking on the big day.
Several Republican lawmakers survived a deadly train crash, and some of them gave first aid to victims. About 100 senators and representatives were traveling to the GOP's annual retreat when their Amtrak train collided with a garbage truck on the tracks in Virginia. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy and other lawmakers with medical training jumped out of the train to help the injured passengers in the truck. They found one passenger dead. He was identified by authorities as Christopher Foley of Virginia. A group including Arizona Senator Jeff Flake and Ohio Representative Brad Wenstrup tended to another man who was badly injured before carrying him to an ambulance on a stretcher. Both Flake and Wenstrup were also credited with helping to save House Majority Whip Steve Scalise when he was shot at a GOP baseball practice last year. Flake said, "I thought then I never want to experience a day like this again." There were no serious injuries on board the train, and the retreat is expected to proceed as planned. Some economists say the world is entering a second machine age because of the advancement of robots and artificial intelligence. So how is that impacting the future of manufacturing? Jason Bellini investigates in this week's Wall Street Journal Moving Upstream report.
Richard, we traveled to Asia, where now robots are making robots. We want to assess how they're changing manufacturing and whether they're sealing the fate of low-skill workers. And among the big trends we observed are so-called cobots. They're robots that are made to be safe enough to work with humans. Experts tell us many more types of jobs could be replaced by technology. Chefs, for example. We visited a robot restaurant where we witnessed a robot chef making a Japanese classic, okonomiyaki. An MIT digital economy expert tells us AI and robotics could lead the next 10 years to being the best in human history or the worst for workers if investments aren't made to train and educate them for the new economy. Richard?
Thank you, Jason. And you can see the full episode at wsj.com/upstream.
Dogs are man's best friend, and one New York couple is crediting their persistent pooch for saving their lives. They say 3-year-old Ruby is well-behaved and doesn't bark very often. So when their pit bull made noise for about an hour and a half one night, they figured they'd go check what was happening. Roneen Ondo followed the barking noise downstairs to the basement and saw Ruby near the propane heater. She immediately smelled propane, which can produce carbon monoxide, a colorless and odorless gas. Because of the early warning, Roneen was able to turn off the heater before carbon monoxide poisoning set in. Roneen and her husband say they don't know what would have happened if Ruby didn't warn them, and credit their dog's intuition with saving their life.
For many Americans, tax refunds aren't all spent on vacations and expensive purchases. Out-of-pocket healthcare spending increases by about 60% the week after most people get their refund checks. This, according to a study by the JP Morgan Chase Institute. The impact of extra money is felt most by those who have less. Families with under $536 in their checking account increase their health spending by a huge 220%. Some experts worry about what this means for the health of those people in the long term. The president of the institute says, if you're waiting to seek care, you're not getting care when you need it. The cost of healthcare rises every year. Financial experts doubt that will change anytime soon. Many of them recommend saving for healthcare costs just as you would save for retirement.
If you think freebies, perks, and discounts only go to certain people, you're right. Consumer reporter Steve Noviello from Fox 4 Dallas says the key to making sure you are one of them is easy. Steve?
Hey, Kristen, we're getting some help from our friends at Savings Angel. More on them in a minute, but first, rule number 1, be nice. Look, when I go into a store, I recognize the staff there doesn't work for me. They're much better to work with me because they have access to all kinds of insider information that I find very valuable. For example, I'm a big outlet shopper, so I ask them, which days do the trucks come? What time should I get here for the best selection?
What about a hotel hookup? How do I get a better room?
Yeah, here's the key. You ready? 3-step process. Number 1, give them a reason. Number 2, go ahead and ask for something specifically by giving them a goal. And finally, and most important, let people prove how helpful they can be. They want to prove that they can help you, and they're going to show you they're not afraid to find that power and to use it. Hey, speaking of power, there's power in listening and power in information. My new season of my podcast, Basic Training, kicks off from FinCon with the folks from Savings Angel. You'll find a link to download episode 1 right now when you come see me online, facebook.com/SaveMeSteve.
Well, we appreciate all the tips and tricks on how to score a big discount. Thanks, Steve.
A long-lost piece of Canada that broke off about 1.7 billion years ago has been found. Analysing ancient sedimentary rocks in Queensland, Australia, geologists were able to conclude the formation was actually part of our neighbours to the north. The data suggests that the rocks broke off from Canada and eventually collided with northern Australia. It sounds remarkable, but throughout Earth's history, the continents have been known to drift together and apart several times. Additional evidence will be needed to confirm the rock's origin with certainty, but scientists think it points towards the existence of a supercontinent at one point.
We're a month into 2018, so how are you doing on your New Year's resolutions? If you're like most people, there's a good chance you've already given them up. According to Statistic Brain, 27% give up on their resolution after only 1 week, and that climbs to over 40% after a month. But there are some steps you can take to make sure you do achieve your resolution. 1, focus on goals rather than activities. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, reframe that into a long-term goal, like I'm going to try to be healthier. 2, take small, achievable steps. Break down your goal into pieces so you don't get overwhelmed. And 3, switch up your routine. If your goal is to get in shape, make sure there's variety in your fitness regimen. The last thing you want to do is get bored and give up. Incorporate these tips and hopefully your resolution is easier to maintain. Most dog owners already think their furry friend is the cutest in the world, and a new line of dog-friendly accessories will make them even cuter. Popular jewelry website Bauble Bar has partnered with Animal Planet's Puppy Bowl to create a limited edition line of jewelry for your pooch. It features bow tie collars that come in velvet and patent leather, as well as tassel-adorned leashes. This year's Puppy Bowl participants are sure to look extra stylish whether they're on the field or just out on a walk. 15% of proceeds will be donated to Social Tease Animal Rescue, which houses abandoned animals and helps them find forever homes. This dog jewelry is sure to turn your Fido into a fashionista. Hey Richard, what's coming up on our next show?
Kristen, we're talking about a better way to fly. One app can now predict which flights will be delayed and which ones include hidden fees. Plus, updates on Prince William and Kate Middleton in this week's Royal Watch. And one couple love extreme sports so much they got married while 400 feet off the ground. It's all coming up on the next Top 30.